Hello and welcome to the show. Typically we look at blockbuster franchises because they lend themselves to sequels, and that's appropriate for obvious reasons. This week, however, we are looking at the largely unknown 1981 Noel Marshall film Raw, in which some people try to coexist in a house full of lions, tigers and various other large cats. Chances are you've never seen the film, and that's fine. Please do listen anyway. I only saw it very recently, and Calvin and Alan watched it purely to record this podcast. So we're looking at it with very fresh eyes. Enjoy. This week we are doing sequel ideas for the 1981 Noel Marshall film Raw, and my name's Sol. Nice to meet you.
I'm Alan. An absolute delight as always.
And I'm Calvin. How do you do?
And yeah, I think it's probably safe to say this is the most obscure film that we've done an episode on yet. Before this, it was Pink Flamingos.
Yeah, I mean, even Pink Flamingos at least has a cult audience. I mean, I must admit, you brought this one to the table, Sol, and I'd never even heard of it. And now that is saying something, a film that I've never heard of, to be honest, because we all are pretty well up on our film history, even if we haven't seen everything. I wasn't aware of this, and I was surprised.
I don't think it ever got a proper release in most countries when it came out in the 80s.
It was released theatrically in Europe, but in the US it was only released last year, 2015.
And when you say Europe, I don't think that includes the UK. I think it's like just a few countries here and there. Its first release in America was... like you say, last year, and essentially it was a DVD release, but I think they did do a few, theatrical screenings along with that.
Yeah, they did some theatrical screenings at a cinema that I go to quite a bit in London, at the Prince Charles Theatre. They had it on for quite a bit there, yeah. I was aware of the film, largely because I'm a Tippi Hedren fan. I'm a big Hitchcock fan, so The Birds and Marnie, and I must have seen a documentary on her life or something that talked about this, and obviously it's quite notorious for the use of, just dozens of big cats.
For our listeners, there's a very good chance, I suppose, that people listening don't know anything about this film.
Probably.
I mean, what was it? Noel Marshall, who wrote and directed it. Am I right in thinking he worked on, The Exorcist 3 or something?
Yeah, he has a very scatty filmography. He actually worked on the original Exorcist.
Right. Okay.
I mean, he was an executive producer, and that credit is always a little bit tenuous, and
but my understanding is he kind of made his money on The Exorcist and then put a load of it into making this weird, grindhouse film, which is basically just a shitload of big cats and a kind of sanctuary. And they just threw a load of actors in and sort of filmed it and edited it down into a vague story.
Well, I think there's a little bit more to the inspiration of it than that. It was Tippi Hedren, I think, because Noel Marshall and Tippi Hedren were husband and wife, and I think she was making a film in Africa. I came across this in my research, and the two were sort of just hanging out there after the filming had finished, and they came across an abandoned plantation house which was overrun with big cats, lions, I think, and they were kind of inspired by that. And because Hedren is an animal rights activist, they thought they needed to make, they were going to make a film about endangered cats and how they should be let free and to, do what they want in the wild, and not in captivity.
It's a fascinating bit of work, I've got to say. It's one of the strangest films I think I've ever seen.
I went into this completely cold because I hadn't heard of it, so I just thought, right, I'll watch it, and I didn't read anything about it until after I'd seen it, so I didn't know what to expect at all, and I got the unexpected. So at first I thought, okay, this main guy who's in it, he's obviously like a mad guy who works with cats, and he's gone, do you know what, I could put some cameras around here and create an interesting story. The fact that he wasn't like a mental cat guy before, and that he kind of engaged with that for the film, makes it even more bizarre. Like, if this was a guy who actually like lived with all these cats, and then just someone sort of came along and went, "Oh, let's film it and like try and build a story around it," that would be one thing. But they actually set this up for the film.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really interesting photos from around the time. Like, Tippi Hedren now is I guess, the CEO of the Shambhala Nature Reserve in California. Like, she's very dedicated to the preservation of these animals. There are photos around the time, and I strongly recommend listeners go and see these photos of her and Melanie Griffith, her daughter, her real-life daughter, who plays her daughter in the film as well, just being at home with, and they just had a lion roaming around the house. And there are these remarkable photos of them just playing in the pool with the lion, and Tippi Hedren's like jumping out of the pool and blowing water in the lion's face, and then he's in the kitchen with them, and there's a really hilarious photo where the housekeeping lady is obviously really nervous about what she's doing, where there's massive lions just sat on the bed.
That goes a long way towards explaining it, though, because knowing that like that is their real life daughter in the film, and sort of the amount of real life lion attacks that made their way into the film, let alone actually happened on set, you are kind of just flabbergasted that like any parent was willing to have their kid on set.
Yeah, the daughter, because there are 3 children in the film of the man and wife, and Melanie Griffith is Tippi Hedren's daughter, and then the 2 boys are the sons of Noel Marshall.
Yeah.
But I guess we should probably talk a little bit before we go into the film, sort of on a scene-by-scene basis. I guess the film is most notorious for the amount of injuries that occurred as a result of the cast.
It's remarkable that no one died, honestly, but
yes,
there's a lot of light maulings that took place, and a lot of which are on screen. And one guy, a cameraman, I believe, like got scalped by a lion.
Well, that's Jan de Bont, who was the cinematographer, who went on to be like a huge Hollywood, like he did a lot of big cinematography. He also went into directed. He directed Speed, is probably his most famous film.
Oh, really? Is that?
Well, that's Jan de Bont, and this was his first gig, basically, as a cinematographer in Hollywood. So, like, that's why he stuck it out.
Yeah, he had to, like,
it was his first
have
job.
his head stitched back on after a lion bit it off.
I suppose one of the things I found most fascinating about the film, just to talk about it in broad terms again, is just how it's shot quite, like, they have a tripod and they have sound, so I'm assuming that there is more or less probably a smaller crew, but there is a crew behind the camera and they are setting up shots and stuff. But I can't even begin to imagine what it must be like being like the sound guy on this film, and like what exactly the direction is, because they just let the cats do what the hell they wanted.
My understanding is that the crew were predominantly like working out of a cage that was built for their safety, like a Shark Tank cage. And there was an incident on set, I think, at one point where because they had a very troubled production. I think the whole set got flooded at some point, and I think a lion basically got drowned that was on set.
Oh, wow.
Just due to, like, being there when this natural disaster took place. But, like, I think it was a very, very troubled production, like I say, and it took them years to complete the film, just sort of dumping their own money into it. In fact, yeah, they what they called Noel Marshall and Tippi Hedren had to sell their home in order to complete the film, and that was big old Hollywood mansion, I would expect. So you're talking like serious money they had to come up with to...
Yeah, it was like the budget on the internet is like apparently 17 million, which
that's quite a lot.
That is an awful lot for the quality of film.
Over 11 years though they took to film.
Yeah, and
I
guess
that's it. It doesn't look like an expensive film to watch it, but then I suppose, like you say, if that is over several years, I mean that'll be a small crew's wages.
You've got like 100 lions, tigers, cheetahs, jaguars to feed, so I guess
we need to just, because I think a lot of people listening to this won't have seen the film, let's just clear up exactly what it is. Basically, he's a guy, he lives with all these cats, these big cats, lions, tigers, panthers, all sorts of things, all mixed up. And about, 40, 50 of them, just in this, like, plantation house. And the idea is he's, like, a scientist, and he's got this grant to live with the cats and, like, become one with them so that he can understand them. Then someone comes along who's trying to shut him down. Then he goes off. His family are coming to visit. His family haven't seen him for 3 years. They come to visit, but he's away. So they go into the house. The lions and tigers are all over the place. then they kind of get trapped with them for a while, and then he comes, and then there's like no plot really because they just filmed the cats and then sort of tried to edit something around it. And then, so there's kind of there's a danger element of these guys who are trying to shut the place down.
It's played almost like a horror film with like creature feature, the cats are going to get them, but that only lasts about 10 minutes and then it kind of transitions into like a comedy and there's some sort of drama going on and it doesn't really know what the hell it's doing. But
I'm not sure if we're supposed to fear the lions and tigers or if, because there are, they sort of, it's very hypocritical because they'll have like a lion like mauling someone and then 5 minutes later there'll be some cute little tiger cub that they're all like, oh look, isn't it lovely? And it feels very confused.
The lion will maul someone, and then the guy will come over and just go, oh, don't worry about it, it'll be fine, it's just a little bit of blood, just don't worry about it. And they're like running away screaming.
I made viewing notes throughout the film. Shall we just go through those and go through the scene, the film, like...
I made viewing notes and stopped like half an hour in when I realised that nothing was happening. I just thought, okay, I've made all the notes that are going to need.
At the start of the film, remind me how it opens? Is it just that guy in his...
The guy with all the cats, and then like a friend kind of comes along, but he's not that comfortable with the cats and they try and eat his jacket. And so he like freaks out a bit, and it's just a contrast with the main guy who's like completely comfortable with these cats and like helps. But my first thought was just like, in fiction or in reality where they actually had to do this, who the hell is going to put this many cats together and think that's a good idea? I mean, I'm not a big cat expert, but you put a load of male lions together,
they're
it's not going to end well.
Animals.
Yeah, like put a load of females together, okay, fair enough. But the males are just going to, even if you're doing it for a film, it's a bad idea. It's dangerous.
Every now and then the film kind of just stops because like two lions are like having a fight and the actors are just sort of like, and the camera like just kind of moves over to like watch the lions like having a showdown. It's like, there was obviously a lot of tension amongst the cats on set.
A couple of lions will be having a fight, and then Noel Marshall will just run into the middle of them and start like pushing them both away. And they're trying to have a fight, and he's like screaming at them.
Hold them back.
He's trying to alpha male the cats that are like 4 times his size and just rip his face off them.
He does do a pretty good job of it. Like I'm surprised. He died of natural causes when he was an old man. So one of my first viewing notes watching the film was just, oh my god, this is insane. Like this is like if you've seen the documentary Grizzly Man.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is why I thought it was like, this is like a mental guy who lives with cats for reality.
Yes.
And then they've decided to film it. Especially as he was obviously like wasn't an actor, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I assumed. It was like, oh, this is like the Grizzly Man guy, but with more money. This is going to be great.
Yeah. Well, this led on to one of my sort of main notes about it, is that I was really trying hard to find a video interview with Noel Marshall somewhere to find out just how close to the character in the film he is, because in the film he's the most irritating, like new age hippie, like he's like, oh man, like you just gotta, like, I hated it so much. He was like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
One of my notes was, I hope they're deliberately setting this guy up as a twat and he's not supposed to be the hero or anything. Because I felt exactly the same way. He was just like, this guy's meant to be a knobhead, right? Like, we're not supposed to like him.
It's because I'm guessing that a lot of the injuries sustained in the film are real, because a lot of these people have like, there's a man who his like face is just covered in blood, and it's like, oh, I guess that's just real. I love Noel Marshall has like a sidekick throughout much of the film whose name is Motivo.
And I feel like he's the cipher for the audience who's just going, what the fuck is going on here?
He is quite... Yeah, his concerns are quite natural, I think. There were some shots in the film that I really enjoyed, because I have a feeling there are some scenes where he's just carrying a bottle of Jack Daniels. And I just wonder if that was... There's no story reason for it. And I'm sort of like, is that just the actor's way of coping? Like, because he doesn't look comfortable. Like, Noel Marshall sort of gets in with the animals and whatever, but this other guy is kind of like holding back.
But I love how he's trying to like improvise and go along with it. So when they're just grabbing his jacket, he's like going, hey, that's my jacket. That's my jacket, you naughty cat.
He utters my favourite line in the film, which is, these stupid lions are frightening me. And how he delivers it is
He's such a natural actor.
How I remember him is that he really reminded me of Chris Chandler. I don't know if that...
Hang on, which
Was that-
one? TiVo?
No, the main guy.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, he was definitely on some kind of spectrum.
It's his voice more than anything. It's that kind of, hey, what's going on? Kind of like, oh, don't bite me. Kind of like,
Yeah, he does.
whiny.
Yeah.
He does kind of go, because he's like trying to be like, hey, we're all friends. These big cats, like, hey, my buddy, yeah, bite my hand off. It's bleeding now, yay. Kind of thing. Because he's just trying to like go along with it.
Yeah. So the plot around this point in the film is basically that Noel Marshall and his friend have got to go to the airport to meet Tippi Hedren, who is Noel Marshall's estranged wife in the film, who has come to visit him with the kids. But Tippi and the kids get, they get some transport to the house anyway, so they just miss Noel.
Do they explain why they're estranged? Is it implicit that he just got obsessed with big cats and she couldn't cope with it? She was like, fucking pack it in, and then she gets a bit of time apart from him, and then
Yeah,
comes
the cats
back and it's
are
like,
what are going to save them. Because there's this really, I made a note of this, there's this really heavy exposition when it kind of cuts to them at the airport or wherever they are. And they just saw someone goes like, so I'm looking forward to seeing Dad because we haven't seen him for 3 years. and then the mother goes, well, it's probably for the best. We're having troubles, as you know. So this opportunity for him to leave was good. And now we'll see how it goes. Like, it's just the most, there's no like subtle exposition at all. But yeah, it just suggests he's gone away for 3 years to live with cats.
I think that was the only like scene that had to be like written
Scripted,
for the film. So
I was going to say that I noticed watching the film that I wonder how much of it was just constructed in the editing room, because a lot of the early scenes, you don't see the characters' mouths that much, and they're obviously looping in lines of exposition. And I do wonder just how much of that was, God, we've got all this footage, what the hell do we do?
It's really choppy editing as well, because kind of, they've got a scene of a guy on a boat, and then they cut to a close-up of a tiger, and then they cut back to the tiger on a boat, like knocking it over, and it's like just really choppy because they're desperately like trying to work around things and make it look like continuity is kind of working.
Well, it's because so much of it is obviously something started happening. Someone was like, "Shit, film it."
Yeah,
and
exactly.
kind of film it, but it's missing the beginning. But you're right, like it's very choppy, like you say.
I think it's around the point when Tippi Hedren and the kids, I say kids, they're like late teens, they get to the house and Noel Marshall isn't there. This is where I think there's some genuinely nice like horror movie moments when they start getting attacked by the big cats in the house, and they're trying to hide in cupboards and stuff, and there's points where like lions are like breaking down walls to try and chase the family, and I think it's really quite scary.
But this is it. At this point in the film, I kind of thought that I was gonna fall utterly in love with it, and that it could go down as one of my all-time favourite films, as a kind of messy but noble experiment into weird, like I say, creature feature horror, because it kind of does enter into this kind of Night of the Living Dead territory of, right, it's some people in a home and they're being attacked by just hundreds of lions and tigers.
Yes.
And it's kind of all for real as well, which adds a weird layer of tension to the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, sadly the film doesn't really follow through with that. It just kind of prattles around with it for a short while, and then it is interesting looking at it from a horror point of view, though, because it's typically in a horror film, everything would be a lot more immediate, whereas in this it's kind of like, it's a lot more realistic, because I guess it was really happening. Like, if they can stand right next to a lion and it won't kill them, but you're kind of on edge because it might turn on them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, if that was a horror film, that the monster would immediately like go for them. There wouldn't be any ambiguity about it, whereas it is this weird level of, well, we're going to kind of hide because we're terrified, but if the animal gets us, it might just bat us or
lick them and see what they are and sort of pad them and then go, okay, I wonder if it's food. I'll have a little bite around. And then, so it is like, you're not kind of sure, because it's like, is it a threat? Are they not a threat? It's like, it is a weird dynamic. Like, 'cause like you just said, like it doesn't work like a horror film because they're not like in immediate danger, but they feel like they are. So they're acting as if they are. What follows is just them sort of repeatedly running away within the house, hiding
in cupboards and lockers, and then
barrels.
those things like falling over. And
there is one amazing shot, like it just really stood out to me as like just technically amazing. Melanie Griffith's character gets into a barrel on top of the house, and one of the cats pushes her off, and the shot is the camera is in the barrel and it's like spinning, and it's all one shot, and you go down into the water, it splashes in the water, and then the barrel sort of turns, and then all of a sudden there's an elephant there, and its trunk is like coming at the camera in the barrel. It's such an amazing shot.
I forgot about the elephant.
Yes, there's a couple of elephants.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of elephants there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, one of them grabs Tippi Hedren at one point, and she's like flailing around in its trunk.
What a weird film.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen plenty of, like, very improvised films like this before, but they're typically, like, a bit more on the art house spectrum, or comedies made with, good comedians who can just come up with gag, whereas this is just, it's very much a producer's film. It's someone who's kind of thought, well, wouldn't it be awesome if there was just a shitload of lions and tigers in a film, and like we just sort of let them do what they do, and like someone's had this idea for this like product and they've thrown it together, but the end result is very strange.
The novelty does wear off in like the last half an hour. There is a point where it's like, oh, okay, any tension that I was feeling about this all being real before is gone, because there really is no plot. It's Noel Marshall gets to the airport and sees that his family have actually gone back to the house, so he goes back to the house, and by that point the family have sort of become okay with the cats.
Yeah, they kind of just learn to deal with it from being around them for about an hour.
They manage to get out of the house, travel over to this other kind of little enclosure. So they get in there and they go, okay, we're okay, we just need to sleep because we've been up all night fighting lions. Does anybody close the door? No, okay. And so they go to sleep, and all these lions just wander in behind them because they're just like, oh, look. There's no door. And then they wake up again, and there's lions there. And then the ending of the film is the main guy comes back and finds them and kind of goes, don't worry, they're just big cats, basically. Look, they're friendly, stroke them. And they go, oh, we were all fine all along. And that's the end of the film.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
The ending is it's like a musical montage of them all just living in harmony with these big cats, and it's quite, I would imagine, quite contradictory to, I know that some of the actors, Melanie Griffith in particular, has sort of distanced herself from the lesson of the film and sort of been like, yeah, no, actually, we were idiots to have, my parents were morons to have these big cats living with us when we were kids, because obviously don't do this.
The other thing I thought of was, do you think that place just really stank?
Oh, God.
Because you know what it's like when someone's got a lot of pets?
Yeah.
I bet it was, that must have been, like, in real life, like, for the camera crew and stuff. But I went to, because I'm a London wanker now, I've moved to London, I went to the Tate Modern, right? and obviously all the, like, the modern art in there and stuff. And, like, I walked around and you see all this stuff, and, like, most of it is just, like, a load of random pointless shit. That's how it comes across. Even though my response to that was kind of like, this doesn't mean anything to me. I like that sort of thing exists. I like that the Tate Modern exists. And I like that there are mental people who create mental art. Or let's be more PC, outsider art. And that is allowed to exist. And that's exactly why I like this film. Because it's not a good film by any means, but the fact that it got made, the fact that someone with just enough insanity had $17 million to make this film.
But that's it. It is very much, as you say, a piece of outsider art.
Yeah.
It's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
It's just on the fringes of humanity where we find the true outsider art.
Yeah. And I think, like, I did really enjoy the viewing experience, and I would highly recommend anyone go out and seek it out, because while I do think that the novelty fades in the last half an hour, there is, like, the first hour is pretty mesmerizing, just to see what these people are doing with these live big cats.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really is a unique film. Like, I really can't think of a close comparison. I think I have a very similar opinion to you two, that, like, it's not a great film, but I'm very happy that it exists, and I'm very happy to have seen it and for it to be there. And I suppose, part of why I wanted us to do it on this podcast was just to kind of get the word out, because I think anyone who's remotely interested in film will get something out of it. Apparently, when promoting the film, Tippi Hedren categorically said there would never ever be a sequel. But we're gonna prove her wrong with our pitches now.
Okay, my idea is a sequel crossover. So it's a sequel to Raw and Jaws. And I'm going to call it Raws. So in the spirit of the original, there's no real plot. It's just we have the character of Hooper from Jaws, and his experiences with the sharks have driven him slightly insane. So now he's decided that he needs to truly understand and study sharks, and he must become one with them and live with them. He gets a research. Is this
going to be Richard Dreyfuss returning?
Well, I don't know. He's a bit too old.
He would probably surround himself by the shark's natural predator, which is probably the tiger or the lion, right? Because house cats like to eat little fish.
No, he wants to become one with the sharks. He wants to live with them. So I was thinking, when I was watching Raw, I was thinking they should have got Dennis Hopper to play the lead, because especially at that time he was just the right amount of mental to play that, and he would have just completely embraced
that. Would have been perfect.
But he's dead as well now, so he can't do it. So yeah, we might have just got to get a 70-year-old Richard Dreyfuss to do it. Anyway, so we set up with he's got like a research grant from somewhere, however that's happened. And so he set up a shark colony in an indoor swimming pool in Southern California. So he has every type of different shark in there, even though in reality they just kill each other really quickly. And he lives there too, and he just sort of swims around in his wetsuit.
Back in Victorian days, they just kind of threw animals together like this in the zoo.
Yeah.
They'd have the bear enclosure at the zoo would just be like a polar bear, a grizzly bear, just various bears, and
they would just
right?
They're bears.
They like obviously they just killed and ate each other, but like it was they sort of promoted it as like who's going to be the king of the beasts. They'd get along usually for a while before one of them would just turn and be like, right, I've had enough of this, and then
Okay, so yeah, he lives there with the sharks. Obviously, he has to live with them. So he just swims around in his wetsuit. He waits for them to start fighting, and then like swims over and tries to break them up. So the film starts. The film starts with him getting a visit from like a health inspector and a psychiatrist who are determined to close him down and have him sectioned. So he invites them in to see what he's doing, and then he pushes them into the water where they are playfully assaulted by sharks. And he gets them out, and they run away. They vowed to return with a warrant to have him shut down. Then his family, who haven't seen him for 3 years, they're coming to visit. So he decides to pop down to the local village to get some groceries. And unfortunately, they arrive just as he's out. Would you believe it? And they wander in, and they all immediately fall into the pool because they're feckless idiots.
How big is this pool?
And then we have an hour of footage of them swimming around in a panic as sharks playfully bite them, and they try to get out. So then they get out of the pool, and they go to an adjoining room where they spontaneously decide they're all very tired and just need some sleep. So that's when the health inspector turns back up, and because the main guy, the mad one, isn't there, he decides to drain the pool and kill all the sharks. Right, that's the solution to this problem. Because he doesn't really know what he's doing, all he does is kind of release an overflow pipe that adjoins to the room where the family is staying. That's like an overflow thing that exists for some reason. So the sleeping family are now reconsumed by water and sharks, and they're in the sharks again. And then the father turns back up, and he reassures them that everything is fine and the sharks just want to play. And then they stroke the sharks, and everyone lives happily ever after, or something like that. That's pretty much what happens in the original, right? I did forget about the elephants, though. I should have had them come into contact with another animal, just like a giraffe sat next to the pool or something.
Isn't there such a thing as an elephant shark?
I don't know.
There's a tiger shark.
Catfish.
Sea lion.
Oh, this is throwing my pitch all over the place. Oh, I should have thought of this.
I think it would be even more fascinating, really.
Yeah.
I just had to keep finding ways for them to be in water when there was no reason for them to. They just fall in.
Mine is a it's kind of a spiritual sequel to Raw, I guess. The title of mine is probably going to give it away, but that's okay. Noel's Ark. Now, so Noel Marshall is... Well, we're going to pretend that he's still alive. Noel Marshall is living with his wife, Tippi Hedren, and their 3 kids when he receives a message from God.
Is this the character of Noel Marshall or the producer Noel Marshall?
Yes.
Because he's mental either way.
No, that's it. I don't think it matters, because he receives a message from God. Is it from God? Maybe not. He's mad. Who knows? But he gets word from God that the world is to be flooded, and it's up to Noel Marshall to build a giant ark and fill it with 2 of every kind of animal on Earth. Anyway, the first 30 minutes of Noel's Ark can be relatively scripted, with a few animals, probably just a couple of big cats that live with the actors. Don't want to spoil all the animal stuff up front like I feel Raw does. Needs to leave some space for escalation. So we can have a bit of plot here, because I want to develop more the marriage tension between Noel Marshall and Tippi Hedren, because it bothers me that in Raw it all seems to be resolved quite quickly, when you think that the experiences of that film would, if anything, cause more strain on their relationship than good. Yeah. So I want to have, the couple, they live in Hollywood, and, some Hollywood friends can come over and tell them how mad they are because Noel's building this ark in the back garden or whatever. And they come and tell Tippi that she needs to divorce this man. He's insane and no good for her. And Tippi has doubts, but ultimately... she decides to stay with him. I want to see them assembling pairs of animals from zoos and just wherever they can get a male and female of anything.
Are they stealing them?
Yes, possibly. Whatever works. They just need to get them on the ark. And this is where we go unscripted, and we basically just put Tippi Hedren, Noel Marshall, and the 3 kids in an ark with 2 of about 100 different species of animal, and just see what happens, really. Realistically, we're never going to get 2 of every animal that exists on Earth, so we'll settle for one species of snake.
It's impossible.
We'll settle for a pair of snakes, a pair of bears, a pair of zebras.
What you want is just the major animals, the ones that kids would recognise.
Yes, exactly.
Just big mammals
exactly.
and the odd amphibian, and that's it. Birds, couple of birds.
So we'll have some scenes here. I'm hoping it'll be relatively calm at this time for filming, but then the rains come, the flood begins, and I want to have the characters fixing leaks around the ship, just so they have an excuse to get in the scrum with the animals. And I like to think that this would panic the animals further, because the room would be slowly filling with water.
I'm just imagining Noel Marshall putting his finger in a hole in the wall with water coming out, and trying to reach to another leak with his toe, and there's a snake wrapping itself around him, and the water's rising, and some piranha are gonna get in, and there's just a big lion rolling around, batting his suitcase to pieces or something that he's scolding whilst it's happening. Oh, this would be an amazing film.
That is exactly what I'd want. Just roll the cameras, get the crew up in the rafters or something, somewhere safe, and we could get drones in. Oh yeah, if this was today, we could just get drone cameras to go in and film the whole thing. And we'll construct a plot in the editing room, perhaps. But I do have something of a wrap up, because the rains will stop, and sure enough, Earth is completely flooded. But as this film wouldn't have much of a budget for special effects, we're mainly going to stay inside the ark and just hear the sounds of the wishing and washing outside. We can have some more marriage drama here with Tippi and Noel. We can montage over the 40 days and 40 nights. And eventually the pair's marital disputes come to an end as the pair decide to amicably divorce. Even though Noel was doing God's bidding, Tippi is sick of his mixed messages regarding animal domestication. It seems that there's a rule for him and a rule for everyone else. It's all very confusing, and she needs some space. He confesses that he was always more interested in the lions than her.
He's been having an affair with a zebra.
And just as they finally divorce, a dove appears carrying an olive branch or whatever it is.
And God says, divorce is a mortal sin, you're going to hell. The end.
I'd be curious to know, like, if you did get a load of pairs of animals in one room, which one would survive? Like, you were talking earlier about the Victorian, like, way. Like, I am very curious to know what would happen.
King of the jungle last.
Yeah.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it? Like, if they were all... I don't know what'd be more interesting. Like, one-on-one tournament style
a
fighting.
Royal Rumble.
Or just throw them all into a room in one go. I think if you threw everything in there at once, you'd probably end up with, like, one of the smaller things.
Yeah, but a little mouse to just hide.
Yeah, because all the big things would take each other out. And
yeah, you're probably right, actually.
Be the bloody cockroach. It's always the cockroach.
No, it'd be man. The most dangerous animal of all.
The giant ape.
Anyway, that's my pitch.
Very good. I suppose I'll jump right in with mine.
Go for it.
I've kind of got two ideas here. Like, I can't really choose between them. We've all gone down a very similar line here, I think, of heavily I mean, just true to the spirit of the original, I suppose. Yeah. Just heavily improvised, kind of throw a load of wild animals together and watch the ensuing chaos. I think I would love to see a straight-up remake of the film, but one that transitions it into kind of being what I was hoping it was going to be. So that is a horror film in the vein of Night of the Living Dead. So you just slightly tweak it so that the family don't encounter the animals up front necessarily. They may, go into the house. They're not quite sure where the dad is. You play up the tension a bit, and then these, big cats start approaching, and they close the doors, and then because all the cats are coming home, they've got like 50 lions and tigers and pumas and jaguars outside, all trying to get in, and then you build that up for a while instead of being so front heavy. And then for the last like 45 minutes of the film, you just have that sort of improvised chaos of, lions and tigers getting in and actors struggling to hide from them. But you like I say, you play it up as horror and you really like emphasize how scary the whole thing is. And, if some actors get injured along the way, then it's the price you pay for art sometimes, And that's what I would like to see.
I think you're onto something there, like, because the concept itself is like, it just needed a better plot to come through it, and it could have
just a bit more,
and like you say, just
tonal consistency. Not even a better plot, just a streamlined, sensible, consistent plot.
And I like the allusion to zombies, because it's kind of like this slow moving threat that isn't an immediate danger. And like often you can, like, even in zombie films, they'll walk through the zombies, and like as long as they don't sort of get noticed, they'll be all right. And that it's that kind of level of peril, isn't it? Yeah, I think that could work. And like, could you do zombie lions maybe?
Maybe.
Has anyone ever done like zombie animals to that sort of extent? You're a zombie expert, so
zombie animals have appeared in stuff here and there. They're a lot more common in like video games and comics and films because of how
makeup's a bitch.
Difficult it is to
getting a contact lenses into a dog.
I know. Resident Evil tried it, the shitty film, and it just looked like they poured a tin of spaghetti over a what are they, Dachshund? What is it?
Yeah, the dogs. Yeah.
It looks awful, and for some reason those dogs are like super speedy, super powerful, even though all the zombies are like slow and shambolic. The dogs like jump through glass windows and. Ah, dear. Anyway.
God, our Resident Evil podcast is just going to be like 3 hours of complaining, isn't it?
Yep. But yeah, that's one idea anyway. And the other idea I had is kind of very similar, but just I suppose tweaking that idea to make it a bit more viable in our modern day and age. So my second pitch, which is more of an extension of that, it is basically the same thing, except instead of a film, it's just a reality TV series. You just get a house full of lions and tigers and 10 celebrities or something, and just throw them in there.
Yeah.
I feel that's where our entertainment is going.
Yeah, I don't think we're that far away from that, to be honest. I mean, they do a lot of that on I'm a Celebrity, don't they? They just sort of throw cockroaches on them and stuff.
Yeah,
they do actually. Yeah,
last man standing wins. It's not up to the vote. It's just
Day 10, the challenge: lions. That's it. Just release the lions. It's like, so you would have to go to Argentina or something to do it, where the laws aren't as strict. And then eventually we have the Running Man. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
the future of TV is looking very good.
Just on this, before we wrap up, just on the subject of if this was to be a fiction and there was an actor doing it, are there any working actors? Tippi Hedren and Melanie Griffith are obviously the biggest stars of Raw, and even then they're not huge stars, but do you think there are any current working actors who would be willing to do this sort of thing? Alan, you mentioned Dennis Hopper.
Nicolas Cage.
If you could find a scientist or someone who'd gone and lived amongst lions in real life, then Daniel Day-Lewis would do it.
Yes.
But he would have to be playing a real person.
Nicolas Cage would do it. He'd do it with bees.
I think if someone was going to do it, it would probably be an actor kind of playing a bit against type. I could see it being someone like Robert Pattinson or someone trying
to change their image.
Yeah, just trying to prove something, but you're not really sure what. Zac Efron or someone like that.
Shia LaBeouf.
Oh god, yeah, Shia LaBeouf. That is it. Yeah,
he would totally do it. Maybe we should pitch it to him. Actually, I think we're we could be on something there.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that somewhat unconventional episode choice. Please do come back next week. We'll probably be doing something far more conventional. As always, please do subscribe, review, follow, and all of that stuff. And come back next week. See you then. Bye.